Hi, welcome to the Special Needs Moms podcast. I am your host, Pat Ward.
And I'm your
And
co-host, Trey Kearney.
how's everyone doing this evening? We're here. This podcast is established for moms, caregivers, and those with special needs individuals where they can be transparent and open about situations that they're going through, and we can encourage and support one another through this podcast. So tonight, we're going to talk about going back to school, our children returning back to school. I'm going to be
Ooh,
honest with everyone here this evening. I am grateful that I am not in those shoes. My son going to school was a lot. I stayed tight to the tight for what, from 3 to 21. So yes, it was a very tight life for me. But Trey, tomorrow's
yes,
a day for you.
yes. Tomorrow's our
How you
first
doing?
day.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. I think, he's been out of school for since August 6th. And we did go to camp for 2 weeks. Shout out to Mason's place. We went
Yeah.
to camp for 2 weeks. So he's only been, home for the last week and 2 days. So he gets bored at home. So I'm excited for him because everybody knows he was out of school for 4 years. He went back to school in May. He did very well. So I'm excited for him to get back into the swing of things. But of course, there's always that unknown of what if he doesn't want to go back? Is he going to get out the car in the morning? Is it going to be behaviors? It's always that anxiety that comes along with just our everyday life, though. It's not even about school. It's just about our everyday life of getting up in the morning and hoping for a good mood.
Okay.
Because, and people who, if you just, this is your first time seeing us, I deal with my child who is 16 years old on the autism spectrum, who is nonverbal and has behaviors. And thank God her behaviors have been good. But, me and Pat were just talking like, we don't want to celebrate because the guillotine might drop. But my son, he's autistic, he's nonverbal, he needs constant supervision. He cannot be by himself. At school, he has an aide. At home, he always has me. He can't be alone. So we deal with two different dynamics of special needs moms. So I just wanted to clarify that for the people who may have not seen us before. And Pat deals with.
So my son has intellectual disability with a host of medical disabilities, and he's 26 years old, so he's out of school, and he's home. He has caregivers at home, but yeah. So I'm just here to support the moms that are like getting ready to start this next school year off. My girl Trey here, and I just want to know: is there anything that is concerning you right now, Trey, about this new school year?
Well, what concerns me, of course, with all special needs moms who have children that are nonverbal, it's always the fear of someone doing something to them. It's always the fear of not knowing if somebody did something to them. But we've had so far since he's been going to his new school, shout out to his school because he's been really enjoying the school because we talked about this before too, because I had this problem and everybody jumped on my back and I get it now. I told my niece, I took him out of school because of COVID because he nonverbal. So I'm like, what if he can't breathe? I wouldn't know. So I said he's not. So my niece was like, Auntie, and she has 4 young kids. And at the time she had just had her twins. They were probably 7 months old, 8 months old when we had this conversation. And she said, I have nonverbal kids, right? So I was like, whoa. She was like, but you had nonverbal kids when they were babies, and you knew when they cried, they had a need. You got to know the hungry cry, the wet cry. So she said, if anything is happening, he'll let you know. You'll know. And you said it on one of our other podcasts. We know our babies. So we have to trust, as hard as it is, our motherly instinct and our connection to our children. So the one good thing I love is that I drive him to school.
Okay.
So he's not on a bus, but eventually I need to get him on a bus so they can have that level of independence. Because again, the thing that we talk about is how long are we going to be here?
Right,
We don't
right.
want to, we don't want to handicap our children
No, absolutely.
because of our fears. So when Brandon was in school, what are some tips that you could give us
Mm,
from the process? Because you've been where we're going.
right. So, like I said, when Brandon was in school, I was tight all the time because I was just nervous. Because again, Brandon can communicate, but his communication is limited. And there were times when things did happen in school, but it took me like days to find out that it happened if I had to go through him. But I'm always grateful and thankful because again, I could tell when something wasn't right. So when I would see it or feel it, just pay attention to your instinct. Trust your instinct. You are mom. And if you feel it, there's nothing wrong with reaching out and saying, hey, did something happen, today in school? One thing I did with Brandon, because his communication was limited, is I kept a communication log in his bag. So I kept a date on there and I would say today was a good day, a good morning. He was in this type of spirits. And I expected when they checked it and read it, I don't care if they just wrote the littlest thing. I just want to know how his day was and what happened, what transpired that day. What did he do that day that he enjoyed? Because maybe I can implement it at home. Encourage me to do something positive that you were doing in school with him at home. But at the same time, if I would let them know how his day was at home so that he would, because again, limited communication, they need to know, how to react and how to deal with him during the day. So that's one thing that's valuable and very important. Keep that communication log. Plus, if I packed him something for lunch that was a little different, like they needed to know how he would react and things like that. I also made friends with like the aides and the teachers, and I stayed in communication, like in their face. So they knew that I was an involved mom. So anything that was going on, I'm blessed. Like they always reached out, and things that I probably shouldn't have known. Brandon's been out of school for a couple of years, so now I'm not worried about it anymore. But things that probably I shouldn't have known, they reached out and they were like, Ms. Ward, you need to call the school because something's going on. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, okay. Or I've also been blessed with where parents see parents. They see when you're at the parent teacher night, the parents that come in, the parents that don't show up, they know. So I've had a few times where parents might say to the teacher, can I have his mother's phone number? Because they knew I was his phone number, because they seen me at I said they knew I was his phone number, right? They knew I was his mom. So they would see me at the school with him. They would see me around town with him. Again, different activities that were happening at the school, I showed up. I made myself known because he can't say much, but I could say a whole lot. So I did that. And these families we would exchange numbers. The teachers would, share our numbers because they would ask, and they enlightened me to some things that I didn't know that was going on in the school and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Right. So that's one thing I have to be better at. I have to be better because we have a communication log, and I have to be better with me sending in information about him so that they can get in the rhythm of sending information back home, because they haven't been really on top of that. And I noticed that. And again, I have to be pushy. I have to say every day, I need something, but they do send this paper home.
Okay.
And it shows, they'll stamp it that says I had a good day. And I think they let him stamp it with them. And it tells what he did each day. And the thing about it is we have to be aware of the fact that we don't know everything. So we need advocates like you, to come to you. Like we need to connect to parents. I need to connect to parents that have been in the school for many years because they know the system. I'm new there. I've only been there since May. We're only going into September, and he wasn't in school all of August. So we went May, June, July, and August. So hold on for 1 second. That's Nadine. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. No, go ahead.
Give some more tips, please.
Oh, okay, absolutely. So another thing I would suggest that you do is, I would say, like, familiarize, like right up when beginning of the school year, I would always write like what I would call like a social history about Brandon, in that it would have medical history, medications that he was on, things that he liked to do, things that he didn't like, information about my family, all the contacts and information, stuff that, sometimes they send home the consent forms and things like that from the school for you to fill out and stuff. But for the most part, I would send home, I would send in, a social history so that the teachers would be familiar with Brandon. Because a lot of times you get consents from different areas. So the school nurse would send home something, the teachers would send home something, but there would never be no communication amongst them. So it's important that you have something developed for everybody. So this could go to the nurse. I got a copy for the nurse, the teacher, the principal, the aide, anybody else who wanted it. I made enough copies so everybody got a copy of who Brandon actually was. So then they would know who he was. And that was very helpful as well.
And also you said something that sparked something in my mind. We need to tell the teachers when there's a change going on in the house, even if it's as simple as a breakup, as simple as a sibling moving out, whatever is going on in the house, like the school needs to know because it affects them. And I learned that from my niece moved to Africa, and Jermaine's behaviors really escalated during that time, like June and July. She moved in May. Now that I'm thinking about it, because we were so used to going to her house every weekend and during the week, like we were over there a lot. And then all of a sudden she left. So that was taken away from us. So now I'm thinking about it, and that was important to let them know. And for me to realize he's tripping because he lost his family. He loved them. He loved going over there. So we have our guest in the building. We have Nadine Wright Abubakar, who is our special guest from Mason's Place, the founder and one of my mentors. She is like the light at the end of my tunnel on so many levels. I thank her for the 2 weeks. Jermaine got out of school August 6th. Mason's Place in the city of Newark had a camp at Newark, and they invited me, and I came, and my son loved the camp. That daggone blue shirt, I had to hide it. So, because when he saw it, he was camp time. So welcome, Nadine.
How you doing, Nadine?
Thank you guys for having me. Forgive me.
No, that's fine. And I just want to say it's an honor to have you on the show. I've heard so many wonderful things about you. So thank you for being here with us. And thank you for all the work that you do in the community. So thank
you so much. I got to tell you, as anything, my daughter's getting married in less than 10 days. So my time frame on appointments and stuff, and she's the one that's supposed to be telling me when I'm supposed to be having an appointment. So forgive me for being late, but thank you, ladies, for allowing me to be a part of this show. I think it's so important for us to talk about back to school with our special needs children.
So, there's so much that about back to school. And Nadine, you are on the board of education, right? So there are things.
I am a board member in the East Orange School District. Yes, I am.
Yes. So there's things that I love you because you share openly and you're transparent. So I was about to talk about this before you hopped on, but as special needs parents, one of the problems that exists in the system is that we don't show up because we don't know. Like there's PTA meetings and we don't know. Me and you were talking about this on the back end. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between a PTA meeting and what a special needs parents meeting would be?
Sure. A lot of people do not know that the state mandates that each school district has something called CPAC, which is Special Education Parent Advisory Council or group. It is mandated by the state. A lot of parents don't know that they can have that within their school district. And key word in that is special education parent, right? Parent. A lot of parents don't know that they should be running those meetings, not the Board of Education, not the special ed department. And I think it's very important for each parent who's hearing this to know that you can be a part of processes and changes within your own community by being a part of CPAC. And if your school district does not have a CPAC, or if the CPAC is being ran by special education, then you need to get involved because it should never be ran by special education department. A lot of parents, don't know that. And, the one thing that they should be getting that information from is their IEPs. When they're going into those IEP meetings, those case managers, those child study team people, they should be letting parents know that you can be a part of CPAC. And if you don't have one, you can form one. And what CPAC is an opportunity for parents to talk about some of the systematic challenges that they may have. Or, it's not a beat up session. It's not about griping about what the district's not doing. How do we come together and work together to make sure our children are getting what they need? And it's important for your special education department to work with the parents, right? We're not trying to butt heads. We shouldn't have to. Our children deserve to get a quality education. They deserve to get the appropriate things that they need so that they can be the best of who they are. And sometimes challenges come with that, but they need to know that they can work systematically with their district so that they can get those things. So I think it's so important that if you don't know about CPAC, start asking the questions, start making sure that you are getting what you need, so that your child can get what he needs. And it's also an opportunity for you to network with other parents, because you're not alone in this journey. Whether your child has autism, a learning disability, hearing, behaviors, it's all a part of CPAC. It's all a part of special education. And we need to know that parents, I know a lot of us don't have enough time in the day to do a lot, but coming out to these meetings once a month, having a voice, because you need to have that voice, right? You have the power. I don't know why parents don't understand that we have the power, right? But it shouldn't be us against them or them against us. It should be us working collectively together so that we can get the things that we need for our children. And when a child doesn't have a one-to-one, right? When a child's not getting OT or therapy services that he needs, these are the forums that you can talk about it. But let me just go even further, because as a new board member in the last 3 years, a lot of people take for granted that the board members know what's going on in these schools, right? As board members, we don't get to go in and supervise the day-to-day. We have one employee and one employee only, and that's the superintendent. So we can't go in there and police what they're doing. So we don't get to hear some of the challenges that you may be having. And we don't get to hear some of the good stories, because it's not always bad, right? But you have a right as a parent in that district, as an educator in that district, as an employee in that district, to come to that dais and let the board know if things are not going right or if things are going good. We want to hear the good, the bad, and the different, but we want to work together. And I think it's important for parents to know, just because your child has different abilities doesn't mean that they deserve to get less. So if you're not involved in your CPAC, get involved. If you don't have one, reach out to Nason's Place. We'll show you how to form one. We'll work with an organization out there that will help you do that. But you as a parent have the power to ensure your child can get everything that they need within your school district. And it's mandated law by the state of New Jersey. So let me make that clear.
All right. So I have a question for you. Now, there's kids that go to school in district and kids that go to school at a district. So the CPAC, now, I know you said that, it works. You work with the board or not with the board?
You work not with the board, but you work with the special education department, right? So what happens is that you will have a liaison within the school district, right? Special education, and you can systematically have a representative from your CPAC, because CPAC has officers too. You can have someone that can sit down with the board, right? The special education department, and talk about some of the systematic challenges that may be occurring, right? Or working together to better get information out. So it's an opportunity for the two groups to come together, because so often you hear the negative about parents and special education, but there are some positives. And through this CPAC, you can have those positives. You can work together so we won't keep hearing those negatives. Okay. So if you're out of district, you can also be a member of CPAC, but you have to go back to your district. So for example, I am an East Orange resident, right? I am a member of CPAC because guess what? I'm a special needs parent. Even though I sit on the board, I'm still a parent of a special needs child. So I can be a part of the CPAC. So, it's just a matter of you getting out, getting yourself educated, and being involved. Because let me tell you something. In numbers, we can pack a heavy punch. Without those numbers, if you got one or two parents, and sometimes parents are looked upon when they're coming in to advocate for their children as an angry parent. No, it's a frustrated parent who's gone through hoops and bounds trying to get their children some things that they desperately need. But let me just say this on the flip side, We also have parents who are unrealistic on what they want. What our children need and what we want for our children may not always be the same thing at the same time. So we got to look at what's going to be in the best interest of our child,
All right.
right? Because we all want our children in general ed, right? That's the goal. But sometimes they're not ready. But putting them in the right environment early on will prepare them to be able to go there one day.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about this because we were talking about fears before you came on, and you know our
Talking
children
about what?
fears, the fear that comes along with putting our children when school starts up, and yet all the fear that we have. Or, you know, Jermaine doesn't talk, so we know that there may be instances where there are behaviors where there may be an opportunity of a particular hold. So how do we process that without? I know I've dealt with some behaviors with Jermaine where I wish somebody would have been here who was trained to do a hold. But there are some parents who are objective to that, but sometimes it's necessary. So how do we differentiate between the two? If it's necessary and when we should be concerned?
Well, here's the thing, right? We know our children. The one thing that I will say is sometimes we got to watch the movement of our kids, right? Because the fear is us. They don't have the fear. We probably are the worst ones for our kids. They can go all day and be happy-go-lucky, and it's us who kind of hold them back. But I get it. I'm a parent of a nonverbal autistic man-child, right? And there's things that have happened in the past that he can never be able to tell me, right? So I say to parents, trust your gut, go with it. I say it all the time. If you feel like something may not be where it needs to be, then investigate it. If you don't feel comfortable, for example, putting your kid on a bus with people who you don't think that understands their different ability, don't put them on the bus. I've done it many times. If I don't feel comfortable, and I will share this with you, I share it a lot. My son was abused on the bus. I couldn't prove it, but I know it happened. He came home with a bruise under his eye. He came home with scratches across his chest, right? There was no camera on the bus. No one could tell me what, to this day, I still don't know what happened to my child. But now there are things that have been put in place. So to avoid this happening, I can tell you, since these things have been in place, then I have not seen any abuses on him or a black eye. But, you know, our kids are challenged, Joe. So we as parents got to put things in place to take away some of our fears. And how do you put things in place, right? For me, you know, I didn't want my son on a bus anymore without a one-to-one aid, right? I made sure he gets that. That's part of his IEP, right? I didn't want anyone else on the bus with him, right? Because that now negates if someone else attacked him, right? And then you have to also understand that we have to make sure that the people who are on these buses with our children are educated about the disability of our children. Because for me, a 21-year-old, 6'6" kid, 320 pounds, who can actually hurt someone, I would never put my son on a bus without explaining to someone what his challenges may be. Not only that, I want to know what they're educated on, because if he hauls off and hit them, and he can, right? If our kids get frustrated, they can. And this person, if he or she is not educated, guess what they're going to do? They're going to lash out and probably hit them back. And that's a problem. So one of the things for us as parents in terms of fear, educate the people who are going to be in contact with our children, because you'll be surprised on how many people aren't educated. Everyone in that school that comes in contact with our children should be educated on some form, since, you know, they talk about the privacy laws and the HIPAA. But if your kid is running around screaming, and then you got a janitor in the building who was like, what's wrong with that kid? Imagine if you had educated that janitor that this kid had something called autism, right?
That's right.
What I've learned is that people are ignorant on things that they do not understand. And it's up to, in my opinion, at this point, especially since New Jersey has one of the highest rates in the country, is that the school districts have an obligation to educate anyone who comes in contact with our children, to make sure that they understand that these children have different abilities, not that they're disrespectful or they're spoiled or they're bad, right? But as parents, we have that fear that people won't understand that. But if we educate them, then we'll get a better understanding. But it's going to take time to stomp out the ignorance. And it's going to take time to get rid of fear from us, because we're always going to have it, especially for our nonverbal children.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a right to ask for a teacher's credentials?
That I'm not too sure of, but what I will say, most school districts, and I can't, quote every one of them, you have to have certain credentials to be into a classroom and to be a special ed teacher. But let me just say this, even if they have the credentials sometimes, it doesn't mean that they're right for your kid, because you have some amazing paras who have never gone to college, right? But they can go in those classrooms and deal with our children better than a teacher can.
Yes.
So credentials are sometimes good, but it's not always the end of all in. What is a heart, is someone who has compassion, who has empathy, who has understanding.
Yes.
So as much as we like to have those credentials, it doesn't mean that that's the right person that should be dealing with our children day in and day out, because the paras or the teacher's assistants are the ones who are probably dealing with our kids more than the teacher who's doing the instruction.
Absolutely. So just what you're talking about. So I dealt with that one time. It was a new school year for Brandon. And the first week I'm kind of like, okay, like he's not, that happy baby that I know. So what's going on? As a couple of weeks started going by, I'm like, yeah, he coming home and he's just not bubbly, the bubbly little happy little boy. Again, one of them ran in the bush. I get a phone call like, hey, Pat, are you coming to parent teachers night? I'm like, yeah, I'm coming. Well, make sure you ask the teacher a couple of questions. And I'm like, okay. And then when you finish with that, I know you're probably going to follow up. They were like, oh, the child study team will be on site when tonight. I was like, really? Okay. So I asked the teacher, I go in the class and I see this woman and I'm like, okay, I don't see a vibrant teacher. When you're dealing with a certain population, I feel like your vibe, you got to be a little perky, because you're getting a diverse, like the children, there's a lot of different children, a lot of different special needs. So you got to be bubbly and prepared for the day. You know what I'm saying? You got to come in there prepared. And she just didn't look like she was prepared. I don't know. She had a long day. She just didn't look great. But I started asking her questions about my son individually. She barely knew who he was. And then I started asking her, what are you teaching them? And she started showing me these timetables. And I'm not trying to be funny, but I know my son, right? So I'm like, he's putting together like 1 + 1. I mean, Brandon functions like a 3-year-old. So, we've got him working on some math skills with counting pennies and things like that. But I was like, Tom's table? And she said, yeah. And I'm like, well, how are they doing? And she literally told me, well, they don't know what they're doing. And I looked at her like I was in shock. I didn't know what to say to this woman, because I'm like, you're the special ed teacher. And you literally just say you teach them timetables. And you literally just said to me that they don't know what they're doing. So then I kindly said to her, so what you're saying to me is that you're just a bona fide babysitter, because these kids aren't getting anything out of this class. And she turns around and she says, Miss Ward? Yes.
Well,
so I got on the phone. I thanked that individual for calling me and having me ask the questions that she told me to ask. And then I went to the principal and I said, we need to have a meeting with the child study team and get my son up out of this woman's class.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Let me just say this, and I'll also speak a little bit about it, because I was in a classroom for 9 years. Right, I worked in the East Orange School District and the Newark School District, and I worked in the capacity of substitute teacher and a teacher's assistant. I saw some things that, as a parent, that I felt weren't the way they should be. One of the reasons I left, the biggest reason I left, the district at that time, is I didn't want to be a part of the problem that was plaguing our children, especially in urban inner cities. So I decided to be an advocate and go in those IEP meetings with those parents and help them to advocate for them. But what I will say is those educators in a lot of those school districts, and I can only speak to the one that I was a part of, wasn't given the right tools that they needed to succeed with our children.
Mhm.
I remember being in the school, and I remember a woman who was now being tasked, a teacher that was now being tasked to go into an inclusion class with a child who was on the autism spectrum, and they gave her no training of what autism was. Um, and this went on for many years. I'm pleased to say, fast forward, 9, 10 years later, you know, teachers are being better trained, right? We still have work to do in getting them the proper supports in their classrooms, because I saw classrooms who had children in them that should have not been in those classrooms because they didn't have the proper programs for them. I saw decisions being made by people who really didn't understand the disability of these children or the
Right.
magnitude of it. I tell people all the time, and this is something I talked about for years, until you put people in positions within our school districts who truly understand what parents like you, myself, and Trey are going through, you're not going to see a whole lot of change. There are some administrators out here who just have compassion and empathy, right? That will do the right thing. But I say this again, unless you live it 24/7, you're not going to really
Mhm.
understand the magnitude of what is needed. And I saw firsthand administrators making decisions that were not in the best interest of some of our children. But I saw educators being burnt out because they weren't given the proper supports so that they could succeed and so that these children could reach their full potentials. So I think that it's important for parents to come out to meet their educators, right? To ask questions. And you have every right to ask who is going to be in the company of your child. And 9 out of 10, if your child is in a classroom that has special needs children, the paras and the teacher's assistants are probably spending a lot more time with them than the
Yeah.
actual teacher, because she has to teach, right?
Yep.
She has to teach, so she needs those additional supports. But what happens when you put 10 kids in a classroom? 4 of them need a one-to-one, and you only have a teacher and a para. That's not good. Who's going to
Mm-mm.
benefit? We're going to burn out that educator. We're going to burn out that para because they're overwhelmed. So I think that we have to do a better job in our districts to make sure that these children, that these educators, first and foremost, are getting what they need so that our children can succeed. And that teacher that spoke to you was speaking probably from what she saw, and she has no control. And that's another thing what we don't understand as parents, because all we see is the teacher. But the teacher is not the one who makes the decisions about the
Yeah.
financial means of what's going to go into that classroom. Because to have an extra para as a one-to-one for our child costs the district's money. But
That's
here's
right.
my thing as a parent, first and foremost, I don't care how much it costs to have my
Mhm.
child in that classroom. You as a district has an obligation to provide what my child needs, and that needs to be in this IEP. But I do
Right.
think that we have districts who are doing it very well, and then we need to do best practices. And I have districts that still need some work. And I'm gonna be honest with you. If you go into most urban inner cities, you probably are gonna see a difference in what services and resources that are there for them, opposed to in a suburban community. And that's just fact. But we can make sure that our children are getting the best possible education that they need by also, because let's not get it twisted, school districts are businesses, right? At the end of the day, they need to save
Mhm.
money, they need to cut costs, but it should never be at the expense of any of our children, whether they have a different ability or not. They all deserve to have the same types of educational experience, but we all know special education costs money, right? And that's our reality. um, so we as parents have to step in, and I tell parents all the time, we come in there ranting and raving because we're frustrated. People say,
Mhm.
oh, that's just a trouble parent. No, it's not a trouble parent. It's a parent who's frustrated because you guys don't seem to understand what is needed. So I
Mhm.
think it's important for us as a community to come together to make sure that those educators, because if those educators are not getting what they need, they can't possibly help our children get what they need. So
Okay.
that's where we need to start, right? And hold people accountable. Hold your school board accountable.
Mhm.
Hold your superintendents accountable, right? Your child has the opportunity and the right to get those services and resources that he or she needs.
And
Okay.
vote, because we have to vote these people into these seats, correct? Like
In
we
some cases, you do. For me, I was appointed. I was
okay.
appointed in the East Orange School District, but I came with a background that I think resonated within the community. I'm a parent. I live in the community. I was educated in the city of East Orange. I run a nonprofit with children with autism, so I understand it. And I was an educator, right? I was in those classrooms. I got to see, and I will give a big thank you to the superintendent that we currently have in East Orange. He's only been there for a year. He's been through a lot of challenges. But one thing I can say about this man is that he's one of us. And when I say one of us, he's a father of an autistic child.
So he knows, yeah.
So he understands and get it. But, right. One of the things I will say, and it's so important for people to understand, school districts didn't get broken overnight. So they're not going to get fixed overnight. So just like with anything else, we have work to do. Not just in our East Orange School District, but in districts throughout the community. I think things could be done differently. But I'm proud to sit on the board of the East Orange School District. I'm proud to chair, for the first time ever, a committee for special services in our community. And I'm proud to work with my board members who are learning more about special education than they probably ever have before, because I don't know if they had someone in recent years who really understood special education on that board level like me, because I live it every day. But I think working together with your district, you will see some changes, but positively. And I cannot stress it enough that it's important for us to come together, because we can't, a negative and a negative will always be a negative. Two positives coming together, because we waste so much time dealing with the why ifs and why didn't we and shoulda, coulda, woulda. Let's deal with what we can do going forward. And I think that's so important. And I think that, we have school districts that are moving in the right direction. I think that parents just need to know that they do matter, that they should get involved in their community and in their child's educational process. And unfortunately, and you all know, a lot of our parents are single parents. A lot of the parents are working parents. They don't have time to come out and deal with it. And up until the time that I had a special needs child, I always thought, the school districts had my child's best interest at heart, until I ran into special education. Me personally can't really speak to having challenges, because I educated myself early on as a parent. My son was diagnosed at 26 months. That was almost 18 years ago. I did my research. I was one of those parents that advocated for him and did what I needed to do. He's been out of district day one. Did I want my kid out of district? Absolutely not. I wish he could have come back into his district. And I hope, one day school districts will be able to bring their children back into the district. I think it's important.
Here's another question for me. This is really hard with our children out there because of nonverbal, but there's a flip side to this. There's a flip side to this as well. We as parents have understanding for the teachers, because I had an incident with Jermaine in school where they called me and they explained to me, he got aggressive. They had to do a night school on him. But I didn't freak out and panic like I thought I would, because we hear horror stories. Because I know how Jermaine can be aggressive, and a lot of us as parents, when we get that information, we get that call from the school that they had to put up a hold, or there was some type of confrontation with the child, we immediately go to, my child is being abused. And I just want us to just not always make that case. You know what I'm saying? Because I know they're really good teachers who are in the system, and we know that there are going to be times when we know our kids get aggressive. Like I know that. So I don't want other parents, when they get that phone call, to just jump off the bridge without finding out what happened. Going to media and calling people and making a big rah-rah about it when you know that your child bites, scratches, kicks, and does these things. So we just have to be mindful, like Nadine said, from both sides. We don't want to blame the parents for not parenting well enough. And we don't want to blame the teachers for being too aggressive. We have to come somewhere in the middle. We do have to be more attentive, because I'm getting more involved now that I'm seeing different things from being around Mason's place, from being around the different teachers at the summer camp. I'm seeing things now, like even at the summer camp, I saw, I was peeking in the window and I saw Jermaine get aggressive a couple times, and I saw them handle it. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just was like, I'm okay with it. You know what I'm saying? Because at first I was going to go in. I was like, let me see. And they were like, no, like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, he's okay. We understand he nonverbal. He's trying to express himself. He's not doing this to us on purpose. So we got him. So one of the guys, I won't say his name, but he was one of the guys. And he said, I just had to hold his arms. And then, he got it together. And I was like, okay, I could breathe. So we have to kind of sort of trust the process, and again, know our children. We have to pay attention. We can't lie and be like, oh my God, somebody did something to my child. My child was this angel.
And can I just piggyback off of something you said? And I think it's so important. We had some amazing individuals who open up their hearts, who are compassionate, because as you said, our kids can be aggressive. Our kids can hit, they can kick, they can spit, right? They can punch, and a lot of times when we see things out on social media, we're not getting the whole picture. So I have reserved myself from responding to certain things when I see it, because sometimes you only get the snippet of someone restraining a child, right? And not to say that we don't have some evil people out there that are abusing our children, because that is out there. Yes. But we also have some kind angels who have empathy and compassion for our children, who are only trying to keep them safe. Like, we don't know what led up to that child being put. And a lot of these staff are trained to grab that child and to hold them, like in not a chokehold, but around their waist, so that they won't. You don't know if that child was attempting to run out of that building where he could have gotten hurt, he or she could have gotten hurt. And now the staff is trying to restrain him so he doesn't hurt, or if he was coming after another child, trying to protect them. So before we pass judgment, we need to understand the full facts, because I've known some situations personally that have shown things to be not the way that it actually occurred. They only showed you the child being restrained or held down, but not showing you what led up to that, right? Because we want to keep the children safe, right? And I already know, my son has had the cops called on him at his school. And I'm okay with that, because I know that my son can hurt someone, right? If he's not restrained properly. I know when the police come, they're not going to hurt him because they understand it. But that school still needs support. If he goes after one of those kids, or even the staff, parents have to understand. And I think where a lot of this ignorance comes from, and again, it's just not knowing, is that you don't know the capability of some of these children until you actually lived in the home with these kids. I mean, Trey, you and I both can firsthand express that our children will come at us, right? Not because they understand what's happening to them, because they don't. I call them involuntary meltdowns. When a child is unable to control his temper or what he's going through. Because remember, in my case, Nason's not verbal. He can't even communicate to me what's happening in his brain. He's also epileptic, so he's having seizures. So imagine some things going on in your brain and you can't really communicate it, and you're frustrated and you're going to lash out. But I think that people need to understand that we have some amazing people that work in these schools who don't have to do this, right? They can do any other job than to come in and get hit, kicked, or spat at by one of our kids. But some of them come in because they truly love these children. They love the work that they're doing to make a difference. And I think that we all have to understand that sometimes what you see, a snippet, doesn't really give you the whole picture of what it was before you got that snapshot. So I never really pass judgment on anyone until I hear the full story. And this is just coming from years of experience. I believe if I didn't know what I know now, I would be passing judgment, because I just don't know, because it's not enough information. But I think it's important for people to know we have some amazing individuals that work in our school systems. We have some amazing people who care about our children, right? Whether it's the educators, the janitors, the cafeteria workers. I've seen them personally interact with our children and show that compassion, right? And then unfortunately, you do have the ignorant people who don't. And then you have the people who just don't really care. And that's fine. Then they shouldn't be working with our children. And then we as a community have to weed them out. But let's
Yes.
not take away from all the amazing, caring, compassionate educators and individuals who work with our children each and every day, because they don't have to. For
Right.
us as parents, we send our kids to school, number one, to get an education, to get, the services that they need. But a lot of times these parents are sending these kids to school because they need a mental break. Let's
Mm.
just make that real clear.
Help.
A lot of us parents are overwhelmed, and it's a lot. We need that mental break, but we need to form our team together. And in
Mhm.
order for us to make sure our children have a great school year, we need to work with our school districts. We need to work with our child study teams. We need to make sure that our educators are getting what they need in those classrooms. And we need to work with our parents as a whole and work together, not to have the negativity, but how do we make it positive? What can we do to make things better? And that's what each school district should be doing. And that's what each parent and administrator who are in those schools should be doing, to work together with these parents and to make sure that our children have the best possible productive school year that they possibly can.
Yeah. So it looks like you just gave the parents some homework, Nadine. You gave them some homework that they need to do. And one of the things that you did talk about as far as the children with the behaviors and the holds and things like that, what parents can also do is when you sign those consents, in order for them to put your child in the hold, most of the time you sign in a consent that you're giving the school authorization to do that.
Yes.
So when you send your child to a particular school, you should review the documentation that you are signing and find out like what type of techniques and holds and crisis intervention training that they have. So when you're authorizing them to put your child in a hold, then you will understand what they're doing. And maybe we can also get trained on the techniques in which they're using on our kids, so we will know specifically how they kind of, apply the technique to our children. So that would help us as well to be a little bit more comfortable with the situations when we're getting these phone calls and stuff like that. But yes, Nadine, thank you. You gave a lot of homework.
No, and I got his packet, and there is a whole packet on holds and behaviors. There's a whole packet that I had to read through, which showed me some holds. Like, the last couple of incidents I had with Jermaine, he got my fingers, like he scratched my finger or bit my finger. But there's techniques that they said, like, you don't put your fingers, you have to put your arm, and we're not aware of those things because we're not reading the whole packet. Right. It's like we read here's the lunch thing, this, that, and then we just throw the thing. I went through that whole packet and I was like, oh, okay, I'm the problem. And I'm just being honest. Because I'm like, I'm just taking them to school and putting them in there and letting them handle it, when there's things that I can learn in that packet. There's a whole, and I don't know about the other parents, they received their packet. I'm sure they did, but just look at all of it. There's the backpack in there. There's so much stuff in that packet. There's your medication things. There's different things that you can learn from. And we have to just be mindful of what we're sleeping on. So I just was like, listen, you have to read every page of the packet. You have to go to the school website. They have all their information. You have to pick that thing apart to know what's going on. His school has a theme. They have all these different things going on. And I haven't always been aware because I'm busy. And like he said, we have to be honest. I'm busy. Parents are busy. We busy. We tired. We got other kids. We got businesses that we running. We sick. So we have to be mindful of the fact that we have to take that time to say, whoa, this time is allotted for my child's education. I have to go to these things. I have to be there. I'm involved, because if something goes wrong, if I don't know what's going on a daily basis, then I'm the problem. And a lot of times with our atypical kids I had, we just throw the book bag to the side.
Right.
But we most certainly can't do that with a special needs child. You cannot. Like, I know I have a 30-year-old and a 25-year-old. And when they was in school, I was, when they talk, I wasn't, hey, how was your day? You good? So I wasn't that involved as I should have been with them. I have to be involved now because my child is special needs. So I have to pay special attention. So I have to take that time to look through the book bag, to read those forms, to understand what's going on. And they sent me home a whole explanation of how everything went, the level of the hole, what the hole looked like, all of that. So we have to just be informed. And I'm glad that I have a team of people around me that I can go to. So I would say to people too, get in the right support group. NasansPlace.org is, she's in Essex County, but Nadine has information all over the world. Okay, so make sure you go to NasansPlace.org. My Goal with Genevieve is another person that I used to go to when I lived in North Brunswick. So we just have to really get people who have the information. And then we as parents have to the information. We can't just sit on our hands and say, well, this is what the school is doing. If you don't know your rights, then you need to find somebody. It's like Nadine tells me all the time, you know he's supposed to have this, right? You know they supposed to provide this, right? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So we have to get involved with people who know.
Yep. Make sure you get that rights handbook when you do that IEP. They're supposed to give you that rights handbook, the special education rights handbook. Do they still give that out, Nadine?
Yes. Oh, they do. Hold on, let me unmute you. Push your unmute your microphone.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, hi.
There you go.
Yes, they should be still giving it out. But one thing I will say is, as any other parent, especially the working parents who have multiple children who work sun up to sundown, a lot of times they don't have the time in the day to read the information like some parents do, right? So I just think it's important that if those parents can't get that information, go out to your CPAC meetings, because sometimes just listening to someone, you can get a lot of information through that, right? You can better understand your rights. I think it's important, again, that parents know that they do have rights, right? It's not what people say is the last or final word. Like I had someone tell me, well, they said that I couldn't do this, or they said I couldn't. But what is it that you want? What do you mean you can't? You do have a right to push back if you don't agree with something. If they're calling you to come pick your child up every single day because his behaviors or her behaviors are extreme, that tells you something right there. Your child may not be in the right environment. And if your child is not in the right environment, you can't just go in there and say, oh, you call me every day, so now I want to pull my child out. No, what you do is you document. Day 1, I was called to pick my child up because they said they couldn't handle the behaviors. Day 2, you document, and you get about 2 to 3 weeks or maybe a month worth of data. And then you call for that emergency IEP meeting and you say, based on this, because you can't go in there based on how I feel. You got to go in there based on what you know and what's factual. Based on all these dates that you called me, right, that I had to leave my job, right, or days I couldn't leave my job because you said that my child was in the right placement, but clearly they are not. And you don't need anything else but your black and white. I tell parents all the time, put things in writing. I don't care if you say they told me this. Nope, it didn't happen if it's not in black and white.
There you go.
Follow up with an email, parents. When you are meeting in your IEP meetings, or if you had a conversation, per my conversation with you today, right? Document everything. Is so important. And it's so important for you as a parent to try to get the information. And if you can't get it through reading through that booklet, because it's a thick one and it can be overwhelming, come out to the meetings, talk to another parent. You'll be so surprised on how much information a lot of us have. And I'm still learning. And I've been in this now for almost over 18 years and I'm still learning. All right.
Wow, I think we all are. So what's before we wrap it up, what's one bit of advice, Nadine, one you would give to a new parent that's going into the school district with a young kid, and 2 for parents who are just going back to school, and it's always a different struggle because we've been out of school, getting back in the rhythm of all of those things. What advice would you give?
The one advice that I would give a parent that, number one, is going back into school, right, with their child after being out. And I want to just rewind for a minute.
Okay.
It is so important when your child is not in school during those summer months, and even when vacations, that you're doing something therapeutic with that child, getting them into a program, a summer camp. We know the extended school year in most schools only lasts in July, but find out what programs that may be in your community. And a lot of people don't know this. And Trey, I get on you all the time about this. Perform Care will pay for 2 weeks of a summer camp for you, right? So that your child, so if they finish their extended school year in July, you can still send them to a camp that may be still going on till August. You mentioned our camp when we partnered with the city of Newark, a recreation department. Our camp went all the way to August 22nd. I don't think there's any other camp that may have gone as long as we've gone. We're
I don't
probably
know what
one
I
of
would
the
have
few.
did.
Right. So it's important so that
Mhm.
these parents know that when they go back into school, that their children, even though they're going to lose some, because it's a proven fact that they will, at least they'll be a little ahead of the game because they didn't lose everything because they weren't out for a whole year or, I mean, a whole summer or just a couple of weeks. But just get your information, observe your child, right? Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, right? And just know school districts don't know everything, right?
That's right.
You know your child better than anyone else, right? So, but just know this, our children will act differently with us than they do with them. So you'll be
Yeah.
surprised on some of the things that they have. I remember a mom, broke down even at the summer camp this year because she never thought her child would go on a ride. She never saw her go on a ride. And she went on a ride with us, right? She saw her daughter dance on the stage when we did our summer camp, right? And she brought tears to her eyes because she never saw her engage that way. So our children can be special, right? And they can do things that will surprise us. But what I will say to that parent is don't drop the ball, right? Stay on top of your school district. Stay on top of, if your child's supposed to get OT therapy, make sure that child's getting it. How do I make sure my child's getting it? Ask for a report. You have a right to get that. Make sure it's in the IEP, right? Ask questions, right? Because there's a lot of parents who didn't know that their children weren't getting speech for almost 90 days or 6 months because no one communicated. And then not for nothing, we as parents sometimes take for granted that the school districts are doing what they need to do. And to be fair to these school districts, there's a huge shortage in our community for paras and one-to-ones, right? Because honestly speaking, they don't get paid enough, right? They're the ones who are with our children day in and day out. They're the ones who are getting the brunt of it. And a lot of them, the pay is not as good as they would like it to be, or as competitive if it was like it to be. So we're, districts throughout the state, if not throughout the country, are probably challenged in getting those additional supports for the kids within the classrooms. And I ask the parents to also be patient with the school district as they navigate trying to get people in to provide those services. But I will say this, we as parents have an obligation to get services for our children outside of school. I've said it before and I will continue to say it. School is only one piece of the puzzle for us. We as parents should be getting additional services, whether it's ABA, OT, and speech outside of the classroom, because our kids are only there, 6.5 hours a day. They got school is out. What are we doing as a parent to make sure our children are getting those voids filled throughout the year when they're not in school? So we have an obligation, just like the school districts have an obligation to provide services. So I will tell parents, again, one thing, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but
you good.
Do your part, making sure your child gets what he or she needs to reach their full potential within the school, and then do your part outside of school to make sure that they will continue to reach their full potential. So that's what I would say to parents. Stay involved if you can. It's worth the sacrifice to attend one CPAC meeting, even if you go every other month. But stay involved. Ask questions when you see something not being done. Don't be afraid to ask, because you are the parent. You are your child's biggest advocate and biggest voice. Know that. No one's going to be there to go to bat for your child as much as you as that parent or caregiver can.
Thank you, Ms. Pat. Please, I know, because you've been in the school system and your child is an adult and you navigated through the system as well with medical issues. And, so please give a tip to the parents as well.
Well, Nadine gave a lot of positive and a lot of information. But like I said, one thing big for me was always Brandon's communication log. That communication log was his voice. my voice when, I wasn't there for him. Like, we always want to be there and we always worry about our kids. But the best thing that I could do was develop that communication log and had that communication between myself and like the para. Because again, the para is the one that's mainly dealing with him. So he was able to tell me how much he ate. Did he go to the bathroom? How he, what he did for the day. And, his behavior, his attitude and everything like that. So it was just wonderful having the communication log. It was really important to me. And again, also develop a social history, something that you can give to them as well, so that they will know more about your child, because just filling out those little forms and things like that, that's not enough. I gave like an in-depth three-page report on my son, just so that people will know who Brandon was. So those were very helpful to me as well.
Oh, I love it. So we want to just thank everybody for tuning in. We wanted to have this back to school special because we know that this is, I'm not going to say a hard time of year, but can be challenging for a lot of us. Not only our fears, but just the information that we may need, the things that we don't know. So if you don't know, you just need to reach out to somebody that doesn't. I would just encourage everyone who's here, who's in the Essex County, Morris County, Union County area, to just go to nasonsplace.org, nasonsplace.org, and just join our community. It's just a wealth of knowledge. There's activities that go on when school's not in. We have Christmas parties and spring dances, and just so the children continue to interact with each other, with their peers. We just went bowling during the summer camp. We do a lot of amazing things. There's Nadine has movie days, sensory movie days. I just can't express. And then for the adults, she has the galas where we get to dress up as special needs parents. We don't get to dress up all the time. But at the gala, we get to come out, we put our best on, we put some makeup on. But there's so much stuff that she has going on for us as parents, and we have to get involved. And we do the Special Needs Moms podcast to make sure the special needs moms are getting what they need. You have to put the oxygen mask on first. You have to feed yourself. You have to take care of you. You have to get what you need. So Nadine has a plethora of things. She has respite, camp where she gives parents a weekend off, like days. If you are distraught, I've seen her give so many parents a respite day. Like, we're going to send somebody over to help you, but nobody knows if we need help if we don't ask. Nobody knows we're distraught or in distress if we don't reach out, if we don't call on somebody. So it's always somebody. And as we say on the Special Needs Mom podcast, together is better.
Absolutely.
Alone. And moms carry most of the burden. I'm not saying the dads and the caregivers and everybody else is not on the team and the siblings, but most of the weight falls on our shoulders. And a lot of times we're sheltering the husband, and we're sheltering the children, and we're sheltering the caregiver, and we're sheltering the therapist. We have to think about ourselves sometimes and say, my shoulders is hurting.
Yes.
I can't keep
the work. I'm smiling, right, Trey? I'm smiling at you, right? You know why?
I know why, because you tell me all this. Because I learned from the best. And I have to say this to Pat and Nadine. You guys have changed my life, because Nadine, when we first met, I told her, I don't do autism stuff. Because that's your wheelhouse. That's what you do. And she said, yes, you do. You don't, but you do. And we've been inseparable ever since. And then Pat, this was her idea, Nadine, to do the Special Needs Mom podcast, because I wouldn't do this. Somebody else came in and said, this is necessary. And I said, I'll do it if you do it. And she said, okay, I'll do it. And I was like, because I didn't think she was going to say okay.
I'm just proud of you, Trey, because you and I have had conversations, and I said, Trey, use your platform to tell your story. And you said what you said. And I said, no, you need to use that, because your voice is important. All our voices are. We get to hear snippets of what other people are dealing with, right? And sometimes people look at us, especially me, and they say, oh, she's got it going on. She's got her son. Everything is fine. And everything isn't fine. What I will say is God has given me a purpose, and I live it. Yes. But through that purpose, I've met some amazing sheroes along the way who didn't know what their purpose was going to be. And I smile when I think about Trey, because she was adamant. No, I said, Trey, God is going to use you, and He is, and here we are. So thank you, Pat, for helping me hone her in on what her purpose is, and sharing and helping other parents. Because if one person hears this message today or this conversation, it's going to help them. They probably got some information that they didn't know. I'm pretty sure there's at least one person didn't know about CPAC, right? And we wouldn't have been able to share that if you ladies hadn't come together to put it out there, right? And when and Trey will tell you, I'll talk my head off all day in educating parents. Like, I'll tell them they can get a fence built on their property. The state will pay for it. I can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But it's important for us to use our voices. So I smile when I look at Trey and I'm hearing her, because she said she wasn't going to do it, but God said, yes, you are.
That's right. That's right. And I'm grateful that I'm really grateful that she did do this, because again, I tell Trey all the time, she's talented, and this is an amazing platform. And the mission of this platform is so that special needs moms can be transparent and speak about what they're going through. Because when they tell their story, your story supports and encourages another mom. Like you just said, Nadine, even if it's just one mom, whatever was said, whatever she heard, she's going to get through, and then she's going to encourage another mom. And then that mom is going to encourage another mom. And we're going to have a team. We're going to have just a huge entourage of women, parents, caregivers just out there, just encouraging the world and, teaching everyone about our children and the special needs population. So,
and let me just say this too, Pat. I think it's so important that we, as mothers, as advocates out here, but more importantly, Black women, right? Black of color, that we support one another. There's no one said person that can do this alone. There is no I in team, right? So it's so important that we uplift, we support. And that's one of the things that I think is not being done enough, because everyone's trying to do this and I'll do this one and I'll do that one. But if we work together and come together, we can make a huge impact on not just our communities, but throughout the state, using our platforms and using our voices to uplift. I hear so many people talk about the work that I do, but I can't do it without my other sheroes working with me, right? We got to uplift. We can't continue to say, oh, but she does that, and I'm not going to support that. We need to support one another, because we're all going through a journey that we never anticipated that we would be going through. And It's important that we help one another. So if you know information, I've seen parents who haven't shared information because they don't want this one to get more than them. Whatever God has for you, let me tell you, nobody's going to take from you.
That's
right. I believe that. So we as a community, Black, brown, green, yellow, white, come together, work for the common good of our children.
Yes.
We can do a lot together than we can do apart.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. I got to get out of here right now, but thank you, Trey and Pat, for having me on. I'm looking forward to coming back and talking some more and sharing some more nuggets if Trey hasn't already shared them. But it's so important that what you ladies are doing is so needed. And anytime you want me to stop in, I will be more than happy to stop in.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Again, let me just say this. Please go to nasonsplace.org and make a donation. And I'm saying this because we have organizations out here that are not boots on the ground. We have organizations where the money's not going to the community. Every dime that Nason Place gets goes back to the families, goes into the community, I can guarantee you it's going to go in a family's hand. It's not going to be non-existent. So every dime that goes to nasonsplace.org goes to these families. So we need your help with that. We really need your help at nasonsplace.org, and so that we can help more families. So we thank you so much, Nadine.
Thank you, and welcome everyone back to school. Have a great school year.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. We will see you guys again. Thank you. Have a wonderful school year. The best yet to come. Remember what we always say on the Special Needs Moms podcast.
Together is better.
Yes. I love you, Pat.
All right. Good night, everyone. And wait, everybody. Don't forget to do your homework. You're sending your kids back to school, but you got some homework to do too. So don't forget. I love y'all. Have a good one. We'll see y'all next week. Thank you.
Blessings.